All right, vlog number 3. So we left off with the story of my injury. For anyone who didn't watch, on July 13th, I suffered a double quad rupture when I lost my balance with 750 pounds on my back at a powerlifting meet in Collingwood, Ontario. I had surgery the next day, woke up, and ended up spending the next 9 days in hospital. So coming to you from my home hospital bed, doing some rehab. I got the muscle stim on right now, letting those puppies dance. And this is how I spend most of the day. Every hour of the day is spent doing rehab. About 8 total hours of rehab I'm doing all day, depending on whether I'm sitting on the PEMF or doing muscle stim or resting in passive extension or even doing my home exercises. Treating it like a full-time job because I want to get back healthy as soon as possible. Today we're going to talk about some of the emotional stuff that one would deal with when going through an injury and all that comes along with it. Man, so you might think that the physical side of an injury is the most challenging part, especially when it comes to recovery, but for me, the emotional side of things has been way more challenging. I can't walk, and being in the hospital for 9 days was tough, but it wasn't the pain that got to me. Being bedridden for 6 weeks, everything that's come along with that on the emotional side of things has pushed all of my emotional buttons. All of my emotional triggers have been challenged over the last 4 weeks. We're sitting just over 4 weeks post-surgery. We've been home for 3 weeks now, just over 3 weeks. And I want to talk about that because the physical recovery is interesting, especially with me having 2 master's degrees. I'm really interested in the human body, anatomy, biomechanics, and my expertise in strength and conditioning. The rehab process, it's not hard. It's very simple. It's just a matter of managing symptoms right now, making sure that I'm maintaining physical function, trying to get my central nervous system back online so that I can fire the muscles. It's really the mental side of things that's challenged me the most. Before we get into that, I always feel like I need to make a few caveats, especially when I talk about emotional stuff. First, I'm not complaining. I'm not looking for pity in any of this. I'm simply trying to share my experiences and my mindset, and I'm also not looking for praise. The other thing that I want to note is I'm not judging anyone. If you process things differently than I do, and that works for you, fantastic. I'm not saying that the way I do things is the way that you have to do things. I'm just saying this is what works for me. Everyone is different and your life is yours to live. The next thing is, these are lessons, strategies, tools, and tactics that I've learned through years of deep work on myself. I've been going to therapy consistently since 2019. I started off going twice a week, then it was every week, then it was every couple weeks, then it was every month. And I've been going every month for as long as I can remember, since 2019, just as like an almost like emotionally brushing my teeth. Even if I'm showing up and talking to my therapist about how good my life is, which is lately what's been happening, I always go because it's really important for me to check in with myself. And I feel that work has allowed me to cultivate the mindset where I can sit here and be totally okay with what's happening, even though it's taking me a lot of processing to get there. I am a big proponent of therapy, and I think that if you are struggling with anything that's going on in your life, having an unbiased third party to talk about it with is profoundly impactful. Okay, enough stalling. I'm just going to get into it. And we're going to talk about a number of topics today. The first one being Stoicism. So Stoicism is a branch of Greek philosophy. It's something that I personally am very drawn to. It focuses on self-accountability, rationality, and accepting of things that are beyond our control. So in the face of negative situations, Stoicism can be a valuable tool to help cope and find a way forward. It's very action-oriented, which I love. I love actually seeing ways forward through things. Stoics typically are said to be emotionless because when you approach, even in my injury, like people commented on how calm I was at the time of my injury. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't freak out. But I was feeling all of those things. And Stoics don't advocate for emotionlessness. They just look at emotions and don't attach a positive or a negative affect to them. So I never looked at my injury as good or bad, right? I just looked at it as something that is. When we attach meaning to things, when we attach like an affect, so a negative affect, everything around it seems negative. When we attach a positive affect, everything around it seems positive. that's a double-edged sword, right? Because if everything is negative, then everything is negative. But when everything's positive, you can't necessarily see how those positive things might negatively affect yourself, your situation, or those around you. I find Stoicism to be incredibly useful in terms of a philosophy to allow me to process the things that are happening to me in a very calm manner so that I can understand myself on a deeper level and be able to move forward. The first, when we look at things through a frame of Stoicism, the first thing that comes to mind about my situation is acceptance. Acceptance of the things that I cannot control. So I can't control the fact that I'm hurt. People have come up to me like, oh, why do you think this happened? To be honest, and I spoke about it in the first video, it's like I've been dealing with knee pain for a long time. My knee wraps were not done the way I wanted to, different equipment on the platform, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but I can't change any of that. All I can do is act in a way that moves forward. If it's a situation where potentially I wanted to get back to powerlifting as quickly as possible, or I was in a situation where, say you were going through some sort of hardship in business and something happened, you still need to achieve that goal. You want to know all the antecedents that led to that failure so that you can not repeat those in the future. For me in this situation, I'm not really interested in that. I just want to move forward. A great example, my family doctor, for all intents and purposes, I know he's a great man, had all the best intentions. He forwarded me an article that said testosterone replacement therapy linked to tendon injuries. And he said, did you know about this? Of course I knew about it. I've known about it for a really long time. But knowing that doesn't change the fact that I got hurt. Nor do I believe that having not taken testosterone would have saved me from falling with 750 pounds on my back. Yes, it's great that you understand the links to the outcomes that you're experiencing, but let's focus on what we can do to move forward. I didn't find that helpful. I let him know. I also find this whole the world gives us what we need. And I didn't need to tear my quads, right? I didn't need this injury to walk away from powerlifting. I think I accept the situation, and I don't put blame, and I don't put, the will of the universe onto some sort of religious deity that, it's God's will or anything like that. Like, if you're religious, that's great. If that helps you and your faith gives you peace, fantastic. Does the opposite to me. I want to have control over the world that I live in. And in order to look at my world with control, I have to focus on what's within my control, accept the things that aren't, and just move forward. So I can't change the past. All I can focus on is what's within my control, which right now is making sure that I'm sitting here doing my rehab the number of times a day I'm supposed to be doing it, make sure that I am doing the stretches I'm supposed to do, make sure that I'm doing the exercise I'm supposed to do, make sure that I go to PT, make sure that I go swimming, make sure that I do all of the different things that I'm supposed to do. That's within my control. The other thing within my control is my mindset. So I'm focusing on approaching every day with a mindset of somebody who's trying to move forward. And that kind of allows me to approach the roadblocks. Like, there are things in my way right now that I have to accept. I have to accept the fact that my surgeon and my PT are holding me to a 6-week timeline before they're allowing me to walk. That's the case. I can't change that. It takes 6 weeks for bone to heal. They want to take a conservative approach and make sure I don't get re-injured. I don't want to go against their wishes. So I cannot continue to fight against those things that I cannot change. I must accept them. Once I can accept them, I make a kind of appraisal of what I can control. I can still control my rehab, and then I move on. The last piece with this is nothing is good or bad, it just is. And this comes from searching for ways to be useful. I don't view my injury as bad anymore. It sucks, super sucks, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to practice patience, and it's an opportunity for me to practice acceptance. It's an opportunity for me to fortify my mindset and build myself to a person who is more resilient and can therefore be more resilient and more empathetic to help the people that I work with. So in that, you can see the injury as a gift. It also provided me the opportunity to know that there are a lot of people in my life who love me, care for me, and value my impact on them. I may otherwise not have known that, or may have taken that for granted prior to this injury. So there are a lot of positives that have come from this. There are a lot of negatives that have come from it as well. But you don't attach meaning to the incident, you attach meaning to the things that come from it. The next is fear. I mean, there's been a lot of fear in this situation. Fear of the unknown was a big one. I remember feeling so incredibly scared heading to the hospital, not necessarily knowing the extent of my injuries. I remember being scared going into surgery, not knowing how the surgery would go, what they would find when they got in there, being scared of all of the things that might come over the next 6, 12, 18 weeks as we get through this recovery. There's a lot of things unknown, and that is scary. But I honor that fear, and I feel that fear, and within that fear, it lets me know that I care. It lets me know that I'm alive, and it also lets me know that this is important to me and that I need to use that fear to make this useful, right? I also still get nightmares. Like, I'd be lying if I said that, oh, I'm totally fine, all good, shit happens, moving on. No, it was really fucking scary. I have nightmares a couple times a week. I wake up and like a jolt. I still ruminate on it. When I wake up in the middle of the night to pee, I kind of have to meditate to be able to fall back asleep because I start ruminating on things. And it's a real thing. It was a traumatic experience, and I'm gonna have to learn to process that. I still haven't watched the video. I don't want to watch the video. I don't want to post the video. I don't want anyone to send it to me. It was a traumatic experience. And I also have a fear of like how this is going to impact others. I remember locking eyes with my wife right after I got hurt, and just being so afraid for how much this was going to affect her. We've kind of figured out what that situation is, and it is a heavy burden for her to carry, almost as heavy as the injury itself. I personally would say it's worse. I just have to be here. She's got to take care of me, right? So fear is a big thing. The other is disappointment. We had to cancel our honeymoon. We were scheduled to go to Europe for 10 days, or 2 weeks, about 2 weeks after the meet. We were also scheduled to go to Elite FTS and film a podcast. We were also scheduled to, I was scheduled actually to have my first speaking engagement paid for. Had to cancel that. Had to cancel a trip back to Pittsburgh where I went to school. Olivia's coaching, so she's going to go by herself, but I was really looking forward to go and reconnecting with some people from when I was in school. There's been a lot of disappointment. I'm missing out on a wedding of a dear friend and her new husband that I was really looking forward to, and not to mention the ability to walk or care for myself. I mean, it's really disappointing, but you have to accept it, right? And once you accept it, and once you accept that disappointment, feel it, acknowledge it, and then move on. The one thing we were able to do is look at those things that we had canceled and see if there was opportunities to, recoup our funds. We were able to get refunds for the bulk of our travel. I don't think we lost any money on our travel. The wedding we're gonna have to miss. The podcast we can reschedule. And there will be other trips, to Pittsburgh. When we were in the hospital, we booked a trip to Puerto Rico for the new year just to kind of make up for the fact that we were missing out on this trip. And so that's something to look forward to. So in that disappointment, we looked at, okay, how can we overcome this disappointment? The next is love and gratitude. This is one that was really hard for me because I don't take compliments very well, and I tend to diminish my role in a lot of things. I don't really like being praised, but every time I opened my phone for the first 3-4 days, even now, I still get messages of people extending their love and the gratitude they have for me and the impact that I've had on their lives. Then there's the love that I feel from my friends and my family who've stepped up to help take care of me, who've come and given Liv a break, let her go train. My cousin was coming over every day. My mom's been coming over every day. I've had people offer to drive me to appointments. That means the world to me, especially as somebody who hates asking for help and hates being a burden. To know that there are so many people who love me and care for me and want me to, get through this, it means a lot. So it's tough to feel anything but gratitude. And that gratitude is something that I am going to be holding very close. The next emotion is pride and humility. I pride myself on being a very capable man. I pride myself on being a caretaker, a protector for my wife. This injury has completely humbled me. I remember in the hospital, so I mentioned in the first video, from before my accident to about Thursday, I didn't have a single bowel movement, so I don't really have to deal with it. But on Thursday, They had to induce a bowel movement because they were worried about the effects the narcotics were having on my digestion. So I had to get an enema. For anyone who doesn't know what an enema is, you have to lie on your side, a nurse has to shove a tube up your ass, and then they pump water into your colon. Then you have to hold it in your colon, so a liter of water in your colon, and you have to wait as long as you can before you poop. Now, me being me, not realizing, I went to poop, called the nurse, we transferred me to the commode. So for those of you who don't know, a commode is basically a chair with a bucket on it. I actually have one right here. That's a commode. So yes, I literally shit where I eat right now. To transfer the commode, I basically shifted my butt to the toilet, and then I couldn't have my knees below my hips because it was too much of a stretch and it would hurt. So I had to poop with my legs straight out with my feet resting on the bed. Now from that position and the fact that the commode was so small, I couldn't shift my weight. I couldn't wipe myself. I had to call the nurse and I had to get the nurse to wipe my ass. There is nothing more humbling, or I've never experienced anything more humbling than that. I called her over, I was like, I can't wash myself. I can't clean myself. And she's like, oh, no big deal, I got you. And I was like, whoa. This might not be a big deal for you, but it's a big deal for me. And she was great. She's like, you know what? We do this all the time. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We'll take care of you. So she took care of me, transferred me back. Everything was good. But then at one point, went to go to the bathroom, finished, called for the nurse. Nurse was unavailable because there was an emergency on the floor. So I was waiting. And then my right foot went numb. And it was a while and my foot was so painful. I called Liv. I said, you gotta help me. I had to ask my wife to clean me. And in that moment, I just remember feeling so small, so emasculated. All these feelings of, my manliness being challenged by the fact that I couldn't wipe my own ass and my wife had to do it. And it just destroyed me. It just reaffirmed that my autonomy was completely gone. Luckily, as soon as we got home and I got the proper equipment, I could clean myself, but that was a really challenging thing for me to face. So I have regained some of my self-care. I can clean myself, and that was a really big, relief for me. But that in and of itself brings the next emotion is I fucking hate being a burden on other people. It is one of the largest emotional triggers that I have that makes me feel terrible about myself. And I don't have a choice. I have no choice but to ask for help here. It is something that I am working very hard at. It's something that I actually ramped up my sessions with my psychologist to speak to her about it and to use these feelings as an opportunity to understand myself more fully. Whenever I need to ask for help or whenever I feel like that getting help from someone is inconveniencing them, it makes me feel like shit. I'm inconveniencing my mom to ask her to drive me to an appointment, or when it's in the middle of the night and I drop my CPAP mask and I have to call Liv to get her out of bed to come down, pick up my mask and hand it to me. These are the things that just completely eat away at my self-confidence, and it's been really challenging to deal with. And I know I'm a burden on people, especially my wife, and she's someone who I love more than anyone in the world. So I need to get to a place where I understand that she is doing the things for me because she loves me, and she doesn't have to enjoy it. And when she's stressed about it, she's still doing it because she loves me. And it's not a reflection on me being a bad person or me being a piece of shit. It's just the function of this is where we're at. It's going to come to an end, and we will do the work we need to do to reconnect with one another once we're through this. And that brings, once we're through this, I've wanted to be through this point and back walking for the last week and a half. And those expectations have been really challenging to deal with. I had expectations that the administration at the hospital would take care of me and get me out of there as fast as possible with the least amount of inconvenience. They let me down. I had the expectation that the people handling the equipment delivery would follow through. They let me down. I had the expectation that once I was functionally capable of walking, I would be permitted to do so. That was a disappointment. When it comes to more administrative things, the quote that comes to mind is, you cannot expect yourself from others. So how I would handle things is not how most people would do. The effort and the professionalism that I bring to the table, it's far and above what most people do, especially when they work for other people. So to expect my work ethic and my level of professionalism from others, it's not worth it. I try to approach my life with no expectations, to the point where, you know, I've joked and I mean this, and I said it in my vows at my wedding, that I don't expect Liv to wake up and love me tomorrow. What I do know is that I'm going to wake up and act in a way, I'm going to wake up and act in a manner that will engender love from her. Right? So I'm going to act like a man whom she would love. There's no expectation there. And I think having expectations that your wife will love you forever, it cheapens that emotion. It cheapens that bond, because you're going to take that for granted. And that's something I'm never going to take for granted. Within the context of what I'm dealing with now, my expectation is that I'm going to continue to do my rehab. My expectation is that I'm going to continue to go to therapy and work on my mindset. My expectation is I'm going to continue to work with my clients and support them. Those are expectations on me. I do not have any expectations on anyone else other than me. If you do have expectations of others, you will be perpetually disappointed. And I'd rather be wonderfully surprised when people step up. Patience. Patience, patience, patience. This is something that I struggle with because I want to be better. And I want to be better because I put a lot of pressure on myself to be better, to alleviate the burden on others. Patience is something that is challenging. Patience is resisting the desire to press fast forward. Impatience is a lack of desire to be present. And I will not benefit from the opportunities that this injury and this rehab are presenting me if I continue to be impatient. So reminding myself to be present, reminding myself to feel the feelings. I would use the term, my feet are exactly where they need to be. Well, they kind of are, they're on the bed. But usually I use it in context of when you're standing in a room, your feet are exactly where you need to be. My feet are exactly where they need to be. They're in bed right now. And when they're ready to be on the floor, they'll be on the floor. But until then, I need to be patient and I need to be present. So what do I do with all this? I'm working. I'm working to cultivate time to sit down and feel the feelings. I'm journaling about them. I'm discussing with Liv about them, and I'm asking her to speak to me about her feelings. I'm increasing the frequency of my therapy appointments to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and I'm talking about them. I do all of this at the same time as I maximize every hour in the day towards my recovery and my rehab. And I'll go over that in the next video, right? I'm spending 4 hours a day in a PEMF device. I'm spending 2 hours a day with my knees in passive extension. I'm doing muscle stim 3 times a day, 25 minutes each time. I'm doing my daily rehab exercises, which take about 20 minutes. I'm doing blood flow restriction training 3 times a week. I'm getting in the pool 2 to 3 times a week. I'm taking my supplements, I'm taking my peptides, I'm managing my nutrition, all of which I'll go over in these vlogs. And I try my best to get good quality sleep, although that's a massive challenge on this shit mattress and with the amount of anxiety I have. So I'm prioritizing a nap as many times a week as I can. At no point in the day am I not doing something that's leading me towards a better recovery outcome and leading me towards being a better version of myself. So I know this is a bit long-winded, but I do hope that me talking about these emotions can give a bit of an insight into the things that I've been dealing with, to the things that I have been using as opportunities to fortify myself and my mindset. And again, I'm not looking for pity, I'm not looking for praise, I'm just sharing my experiences and letting you guys know what I'm going through. And hopefully through all of this, you guys get a little piece of advice or maybe get some strength of your own to know that the things that you're dealing with are not unique to you and there are other people in this world dealing with them too. And so next time, like I mentioned, the next video is going to be going over some of the rehab devices I'm doing, some of the tools that I'm using, and hopefully you guys can learn a little bit along the way. We'll catch you in the next one.